Donald Trump is no stranger to dangerous rhetoric. It's kind of his signature. But this weekend, he took it to a whole other level. During a speech at a donor retreat, Donald Trump compared the Biden White House to the Gestapo police force in Nazi Germany. The White House was quick to condemn those comments, calling it, quote, the appalling rhetoric of fascists. For more, let's bring in Sam Stein, veteran journalist and White House editor for Politico. And Michael Steele is here, former chairman of the Republican National Committee and former lieutenant governor of Maryland. He co-hosts The Weekend right here on MSNBC. Michael, this is not the first time Donald Trump has used language like this. In some ways, it's like, I'm the Nazi. No, you're the Nazi. Like, what on earth is he doing this for?
Well, it's because it's his form of projection. He's heard a lot of folks refer to his rhetoric and his behavior in those terms. So he's just throwing it back at Biden. And it's what, little boys do in the schoolyard. That's how they play. And you framed it just right. If I'm a Nazi, you're a Nazi. Your mama wears combat boots, all of that crazy. But there's behind it, though, a level of seriousness, too, in that what Donald Trump, I think, is starting to do, and we'll see and hear more of this, is set up what will ultimately be the fascist form of American politics that Donald Trump wants to play with, going into the full-throated, game of the campaign this fall. And so I think we should just be prepared to hear more of this from him. He did this with donors. But it will get louder, it will become more forceful, and it'll be more pointed and directed at Biden and people in his administration as a way to remind his voters exactly what's at stake for them.
Sam, there were some big donors there, but the right-wing all-stars were not. No Lauren Boebert, no Matt Gaetz, no Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, these are Trump loyalists to like the 10th degree. And it's even been reported that Trump is mad at MTG. What's going on?
Well, first, should we gloss over the your mama wears combat boots line? I was not familiar that was an insult, but I will.
I wasn't familiar with that one. I mean, if he said that out in Brooklyn, those are the coolest moms out there.
Little old school.
Okay, too old school for me. Back to your point, the reports that Trump is mad at MTG are valid. I think, Trump, I'm not going to say this is an effort at sophisticating his operation, but he's also no dummy. He recognizes that any sort of chaos within the Republican ranks, in this case, if they were to go through another motion to vacate the speakership, which Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to do, anything like that reminds the voters of a chaotic Republican Party is not good for Trump. And fundamentally, as we all know, Trump's bottom line is what's good for Trump. And so what he wants, as much as anything else, is to have a sort of stable Republican Party heading into the election season. He hasn't done exactly everything he can to make that happen. He has not reached out to Nikki Haley, for instance, but he doesn't want chaos. He wants the focus to be squarely on Biden, and to the degree he can make it about that, better for him.
Michael, the combat boots was sort of icing on the cake. It was an unexpected treat that you delivered, but here's why I wanted you to join us tonight. In an op-ed, the former lieutenant governor, which you once were, of the state of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, has a piece out where he said he is voting for Joe Biden in November, and he wants other Republicans to join him. He writes this, quote, the GOP will never rebuild until we move on from the Trump era. Unlike Trump, I have belonged to the GOP my entire life. This November, I am voting for a decent person I disagree with on policy over a criminal defendant without a moral compass. Now, Georgia is a crucial purple state. Is Duncan a Republican with enough influence there to get people to listen?
Yeah, I believe so. Look, he served well, and everything that I've been able to gauge, people liked him, and he did a good job as lieutenant governor. He's known in the state. He's former baseball player and athlete, and so he's got sort of a gravitas with voters and people in the state that can be useful in helping to create the appropriate permission structure for Republicans and center-right independent voters who otherwise would maybe lean more towards Trump because, well, you know, going back to mom, she'd be mad at me if I voted for a Democrat. There are a lot of efforts underway that I'm involved with and others are involved with, and I really applaud the Lieutenant Governor for taking a very bold stance here and helping to frame and create that permission structure to say it's okay, because we are facing a very clear choice between a decent man who has, you know, his shortcomings, but one of them is not wanting to be a dictator. One of them is not wanting to create concentration camps in Texas. One of them is not trying to tear up the Constitution. And certainly one of them is not blaming everybody else for his failings. And so the more you're able to create that structure, the more Republicans that are out there voicing that opinion that it's okay to do that, the more I think you'll see those numbers begin to move. And in a state like Georgia, that will matter because Georgia will be in play for both Republicans and Democrats this November. So I applaud the Lieutenant Governor, welcome him to the ranks of those of us who are going to vote for a decent man as opposed to a wannabe dictator and keep the country from falling further into decline.
He doesn't just talk about who he's going to vote for. He calls out big name Republicans like Chris Sununu and Bill Barr, saying that their choice to support Trump is dead wrong. Why is it, Sam, that Duncan sees the light here and why this doesn't make sense? And those other significant Republicans, despite Trump dumping on them even after saying they're going to vote for him, why are they?
It's a really good question. You know, Chris Sununu in particular was kind of an interesting case study. He was up in New Hampshire campaigning for Nikki Haley and making a case essentially that Trump was pure chaos, that it would be almost irresponsible to bring back into the White House. But he would always then say, you know what? I will still vote for him over Joe Biden. I actually got the chance to press him on that, witness an exchange where he was pressed on it. And his logic was that the people around Biden were more radical than the people who Trump would surround himself with, which is just it's an unconventional reason to support a candidate. I don't know why he has calculated this. Chris Sununu obviously has a future in Republican politics, but Bill Barr does. And to Michael's point, I think, you know, the Jeff Duncans of the world, look, I don't think Georgia voters are going to be like, oh, Jeff Duncan is supporting Biden, therefore I should too. But he does, to Michael's point, give people a permission structure. And I think that's what Biden needs, is more Republicans out there saying, look, it's okay to break with your party in this instance and vote for Biden.